But what I want to bring you is an individualized, just a bespoke podcast, in a sense. So I've heard on a certain program this week that we live in a 50-50 nation.
Yeah.
And the thing that crosses the gap, of course, is football. And the team that crosses the gap more than any other, that overlays both sides of the cultural divide, happens to be the Dallas Cowboys. And so on my show, Pablo Torre Finds Out, where I use journalism to go and solve my own personal curiosities and mysteries, what I realized was that the most extreme example of sports fandom can be found on an online database that the state of Texas operates, where you can see the last words of every inmate on death row. And so many of these inmates, it turns out, they use their opportunity to say something at the end of their life on Earth to say, how about them Cowboys?
Wow.
To shout out their sports teams. And it's remarkable. And so the question, of course, is like, why and how do they even keep us dark?
Pablo Torre, thank you so much for being with us.
No. There's some
what do you get?
Some dare I say, relatability, nuggets? Some light in this, as well as some macabre. You know, I bring some darkness in my all black box theater outfit.
I don't know what this is about.
So listen,
what are you getting to?
What we did was we sent a correspondent to the Polunsky unit in Livingston, Texas. It is death row, a supermax facility. And we found an inmate there named Charles Flores, who I will not belabor his case specifically, just know the man, per my reporting, should not be there. He was convicted in large part due to a practice called forensic hypnosis, a real thing, which is discredited, now junk science by law in Texas. Also, he was an accomplice in a burglary where the killer in the burglary has already been set free. I say all of this to say that this man has been in solitary confinement 23 hours a day for 25 years, and this is the biggest Cowboys fan I've ever encountered. And the question we had for him is, how do you watch football, America's pastime, on death row? And there is a world that involves fantasy football, in which they are running via fishing line draft picks. John, they have a 2-quarterback league on death row. There's a commissioner. They're gambling their rations. This is a place where, despite all of this seeming like the last place you would see a version of yourself, you get a sense that these people are trying to recreate the national pastime under the most dire conditions. And in some cases, it is shocking how football is the one thing they find that connects them to the rest of the country.
That's fascinating.
It's a crazy story, Mika. Genuinely a crazy story.
This is what we get in your podcast.
Wait, I love it.
Yeah.
Mika loves it.
That is fascinating.
His life, then, serving.
Yes, he's awaiting. He's awaiting.
On death row.
Yes.
Waiting for the axe to fall. He gives him great commonality with nearly 9 out of 10 general managers in the National Football League.
So it's funny you say that, because Charles Flores, right? You'd imagine that his perspective on all of this has been, of course, maybe brought back to the reality, the harsh reality of he is waiting for the day when this all happens to him, his execution date. And the guy, Joe, he has, we even emailing with him still. He has so many complaints about Jerry Jones. He has so many complaints about CeeDee Lamb. He is a fan for whom this membership. So the question of, like, why would you shout out the Cowboys? The Cowboys at the end of your life. It's because this is an expression of a membership. A membership with the rest of the country that otherwise this particular Supermax prison has taken from him. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to be sympathetic to every inmate on death row. Just know that there are people inside of there who should not be there, for whom football is their only connection, and they express that at the most high-stakes moment.
To your question about him, how does he follow it? If he's locked up 23 hours a day, how does he follow close enough to have a fantasy team and know the ins and outs and the moves?
Complain about CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, that's right. So there is a television now that all of the inmates can stare through the grate. And so actually the biggest game of the year, because it's Texas, remember, Livingston, Texas, is Texans-Cowboys. And so Charles Flores was watching the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night and being miserable in ways that transcend the misery you would expect. And misery in ways that, again, it's just the most American sensation of, what do you care about? You care about football to the very end.
Okay. Absolutely fascinating. I'm chastened for even laughing at the beginning. That was great.